I'm Carrie, and welcome to episode 14 of the Sego Fibers podcast.
Gravel road, I've been asked to slow down. Fireplace, do you know how? Pass the paper, my desk is out. Who will care for the world out? Rest with me, close to curtains, brew some herbal tea.
Hi, it's been a while since I've had a chance to podcast, and that was totally unintentional. I had grand plans for doing some sort of fun Vlogmas thing over Christmas, but that fell through. And just one life thing after another kept happening throughout the winter that it just really didn't make it possible. And as of 2 weeks ago, the weather has finally turned into spring. The weather is nice and warm, flowers are coming up, the trees are getting leaves, and we're able to freely, easily go outside and play. And I don't know, it's just made life a whole lot easier, and we're not sick. At least for the most part. Anyway, one of the big reasons I haven't been able to podcast was just we had a whole lot of one cold after another type of thing over winter, so that just made everything tricky. But anyway, I'll do more of a life update afterwards. Let's jump into all the yarny goodness. So since it's been several months since I've seen you guys, I actually have a lot to show. And I've turned into something of a sweater knitter since we last spoke. So I know in the last one I showed progress on a nurtured sweater by Andrea Mowry, and it's finished. And so for each of the finished object sweater things that I'll show you, I'll include some B-roll of me like wearing it so you can see how it fits. So we'll see how that edits in. I'll show you here. I'm really happy with how it came out. It was one of those moments of like, wow, I can't believe I made that. I can't believe it fits. And I just felt so proud and just so happy that it worked. Let's see the bottom. There it is. I definitely recommend this pattern. It was very well written. I got gauge, so everything was to plan, and I followed the pattern exactly except for the body length. I added quite a bit of length there. I made the size 1 because I didn't want as much ease as she recommended. I wanted it to fit more closely, more like a normal, not oversized sweater. That way I could wear it under a jacket or something. And also I'm not as used to wearing oversized sweaters, so I'm just kind of like experimenting a little bit with like store-bought stuff to see before I invest in like a whole hand knit sweater. But let's see, at least that was my thinking at the time. And so there is still ease, but maybe, let's see, how much did I write it down? I have my notes down here, so if you see me looking down, I'm just checking because it's been a while for some of these. Nope. If I find it, I might put it here. But I think for the size 1, she had the body length of like 8 inches or something before you split for sleeves, because this is bottom up. And when I held that up, I was like, oh, that's like croppity cropped. Like, I think I must have a long torso because cropped for other people is like barely here or something. And, normal length for me is probably like tunic length for other people. I don't know. But anyway, I find that I often have to add length now. But yeah, I'm really happy. The yarn I used is this Brown Sheep Company Lamb's Pride worsted, and it's in the color Mulberry. It's showing up brighter and a bit more pink on screen, but in real life it's a bit more muted and purpley, but it's really lovely. I wasn't quite sure if I would need to wear something under it. I found that I did because of the itch factor. It is 85% wool and 15% mohair. So I'm not sure what part of that is making it itchy. It's also single ply. It's a beautiful yarn. I do definitely recommend it. I would knit with it again for sure. But funnily enough, when I put this on for the kind of spin around, wear it to show video B-roll thing, I wore it just by itself and it wasn't near as itchy. So I don't know if I'm getting used to it or if warmth made it less itchy, like it being warmer weather now, or I don't know what. But when I wore it this winter, I did wear just like a long sleeve fitted shirt underneath. So, and that worked out great. It's extremely warm and I like that a lot. We went to a Christmas market and I wore this under like a mid-sized jacket, and it got super cold. But because I was wearing this as kind of a base layer, like I had no problem. It was like wearing this big thermal jacket without all the bulk. So that was really cool, and that really gave me that aha moment for, oh, this is why people make and wear like those like itchy wool super warm sweaters, because you get tons of warmth without all the bulk and it's pretty. So it's like, oh, I can see that being a thing. So even if, so like, I'm really okay with the rustic yarns now because it has a purpose. It doesn't have to be next to skin if I don't like it that way, but I can still use it. And so yeah, it opens up new possibilities. Anything else? I did find that the sleeves are fitted, but they're not too tight. I think that's a similar thing for a lot of Andrea Mowry patterns. I used 6 skeins of yarn and just barely kind of broke into this one. I did definitely need it, but I didn't use much. And I finished that one in November. I'll try and give like a timeline and I'll go chronologically for when I made these. The next finished object I have is not a sweater, but a really quick gift knit for my daughter Veronica. So before she was born or when she was little, I made her, well, she's 2, so she's still little, but littler. When a while ago, 1 or 2 winters, I made her a Purl Soho hat. I think it's called like the classic cuffed hat, something like that. I really like that pattern. I do find that it tends to run big, so I either take out some stitches or make a smaller size. Anyway, the yarn I used for that one was Malabrigo Rios in the color English Rose. Very pretty. I'll put a picture of the hat here if I remember. But anyway, so I wanted to use that same yarn, but in a different color, because in the past I had put her in this kind of royal blue hand-me-down kind of snowsuit thing that's made of fleece, and it looks ridiculous, but it's bright blue and it like zips up like this with the hood, and just seeing her round face with the bright big blue eyes surrounded by all this blue, I was like, oh wow, you look so stinking cute. And like I just loved the way the blue made her eyes pop. So I wanted to make her blue something, and so I wanted to do like a balaclava of some sort that wraps all the way around and it wouldn't fall off, because her pink hat was getting too small and her ears were getting cold, and so I was like, okay, let's fix something. So I decided to make the November balaclava by Petite, and but that's for an Aran weight gauge. So I think it's like a worsted held with something else. And I only wanted to use Rios by itself, which is worsted weight. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just go down a needle size and make a bigger size and we'll see. And so that's what I did. And let's see, I used 3.5 millimeter needles. I forget what the pattern recommends, but I mean, if I were to make this again, I think you'd be fine to go even smaller than that if you wanted to, maybe like a 3 millimeter. Just because it's in, I think it's in fisherman's rib or half fisherman's rib, one of those. And so you can really go with smaller needles and there's a lot of stretch. But anyway, here it is. It has had a lot of use this winter, so it might look roughed up. Like her jacket, like at the top of the zipper there was Velcro, so that kind of messed with that a bit and fuzzed it. It's had mud poured on it a couple times. There's been lots of dirt, so it's just it's already been through the ringer, but it's held up well. And I mean, I just wash it and it's easy. I do it in the sink. I don't think I put it in the machine, though I've done that before with Rios and it's been fine. But anyway, so here's the yarn. The color is Bobby Blue. When I saw this in the store, I was just, oh my goodness, it's perfect. I don't know why, but it strikes me as a really feminine blue. Maybe because I had my daughter in mind when I was looking for it, but I just love it. It has like undertones of teal. I just think it is so pretty. But yeah, I made the largest size. I think it's size 2 to 7, something like that. My daughter is only 2, and in general, she's small for her age. Like, she's hardly on this chart, but she has a big head. So her head's probably average or maybe a little above average. I don't know. But I think it fits her just fine doing it this way. But like I said, I could still easily either go down a needle size or keep the same 3.5 millimeter needle and just make the next size down. And I think either way it would be maybe even a better fit for this past winter, but I know this will still fit next year, so that's nice. So yeah, it was a really, really fun pattern to knit. It took less than a skein. I actually learned a lot, and there are video tutorials associated with it, and I believe they're in Danish, but they're really easy to follow. I learned a lot during this pattern, like different ways of picking up stitches, a new cast on that I hadn't, or like you already have yarn on your needles and have done stuff, but then you need to cast on more stitches. And I think this is where I learned the backward loop cast on, which is like, oh, easiest thing in the world. I do that for everything now. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And she seems to like it, so that's always a plus. So I made that one in time for Christmas. I made it in less than a week and it was really easy. And it's funny, for gift knits this year, I think I had like 10 or 11 gift knits. Whew. So last year to me felt like the year of Christmas gift knits. And so I told myself, okay, I've literally made a knitted item for everyone in my extended family that I regularly see like every year. Except for one, because she was too little when one of my nieces, when I made all the other nieces and nephews stuff. So I was like, okay, I have one person left at some point that I'll do something for, but yeah, I think everyone else I've made something for, so that's been fun. So I decided, okay, I'm taking next year off, but I already have some gift knits planned. But nothing like, I'm not trying to hit everybody. Like if something comes up, then I'll make something, but I'm not trying to make gift knitting a priority. The next finished object that I have a picture of is the Chunky Soufflé by Laura Penrose. This was a very fun knit. It went really quickly because it's on big needles. It's, let's see, Okay, I didn't write down what needle I used, but I used probably whatever was recommended. I'll include a link down to my Ravelry project pages, and that has a whole lot more information than I'm remembering off the cuff now. So you can just click on that and see everything I've made recently. Let's see. So yeah, I finished it in December. I think it was like the day after Christmas or something. This is one I was very excited because I got the pattern as soon as it came out with like the intro discount, and I got the yarn right away from Wool Warehouse, and that was also during their drop sale. So it's like, oh, everything's on sale, everything's aligning, this is nice. And this is the yarn. This is Drop Swish in the color Bordeaux. I think the colorway number is 10. This is all I have left. And I got 11 balls for, I think, size 4. Yep, I made the size 4. And let's see. Ooh, fun fact, the ruffle that goes around took a ball and a half. I was pretty blown away by that. It's like, because it doesn't look like much. It's not that many rows, but it's a lot of stitches. And so the reason that I don't have it to show you is because I frogged it. So I did finish it, but when I put it on, the proportions didn't feel right. Like I've seen other people like in the project pages wear it and everything, and it looks super cute. Like I do definitely recommend it. But I think for whatever reason, like the sleeves size, I think the sleeves were too wide and the body was like not wide enough, and it was just like it felt wrong on me. Like I just like, ooh, I'm not sure, I don't feel confident. And I already felt like I was having to step out there by having this really big ruffle on, and if anything else about it was a bit then I probably wasn't gonna wear it. And so I was a bit bummed about that. It's like, okay, and I can't just rip back the sleeves and do those over because you increase a lot of stitches before, I'm trying to remember, after the ruffle, but before you split for sleeves, you do an increase or something. And anyway, you have like a lot of, so I wasn't quite sure if there'd be like a weird poof as I decrease stitches, or if it would, anyway. I didn't love it enough to try and finagle it, so I just decided to frog it and use that yarn for something else. And the yarn I used it for is the Chunky Dahlia by Lene, Holme, Samsøe. And that's this one. And I'm actually really glad I did because I love this sweater. I just feel so good in it. But, so this is the Chunky Dahlia. And it's, the yarn, the Drop Swish, is thicker than recommended, but I mean, I think it works just fine. I would use it again for this pattern. It definitely does not need to be knit this densely. I think the sweater was knit on 6.5mm needles. It had a 14 gauge stitch gauge, but it would be very happy on way bigger needles. This is just what I wanted to do. I tried to get gauge for the pattern, and I made that extra small, and the finished bust circumference is 39 inches. So I had about 5 to 6 inches of positive ease. I'm still learning what size I am. That sounds silly because, oh, you just take a measuring tape, but whenever I try and measure, it's like, well, how tight do you pull it or not? And then it's like, depends on what you're wearing, and then it depends like on all these many changing things. It's like, I don't really know. So anyway, I'm knitting to figure out generally what size ease I like. Slowly getting there. But let's see, I did actually a fair amount of modifications to this, even though you can't really tell. Probably the most obvious one is the collar. It has a folded over collar that you sew down, and I decided not to do that because I wanted something, a more flat profile rather than the puffy folded over one. And so I also decided to do twisted rib for the collar and hems, and I added short rows to the collar. And if you're curious about how I did the short rows, I have exact details on my Ravelry page with like their instructions basically. So you can kind of see, oh yeah, I'll hold it that way. Like the back of the collar is taller than the front of the collar. And I put the short rows in the collar because I didn't want to figure out how to do short rows with the lace motif. Because I could have tried to like extend this lace up here, but it's like, I'm okay figuring out short rows. I'm still new to this, but let's do it with a simple stitch pattern. And then as far as the lace chart, I decided to continue this twisted stitch into the chart. In the chart, this is just like a normal knit stitch, but I thought it looked a little bit neater using twisted stitches, like knit through the back loop. So I did that for the stem. And then one thing I've noticed with this lace pattern is that in looking at all the project pages, the eyelets are not the same size, depending on whether you're on the right side or the left side of the chart. So like these might be a different size than these, like one was often smaller. Let's see if I pull it, if it shows. Yeah, I think these are looking a little bit smaller. So I was really curious to try and see if I could find a workaround for that. And so I tried so many weird lace experimentations, like what happens if I hold the yarn in front or in back, or wrap it around, or twist the next stitch, or like do all these things to try and get the eyelets the same size. And it was, I actually really enjoyed working on that and trying to figure it out. It was just this grand experiment basically. And what I came to was, anyway, so I think looking at it, you probably can't tell a whole lot of difference, but I like it and I feel like it's symmetrical enough. It's not perfect, but I think it's an improvement. So these notes are also on my Ravelry page, but if I say it now, maybe it'll make sense, maybe not. If you decide to try it and you look it up and you're referring to the pattern, it should make more sense. But when doing a yarn over before a purl stitch, carry the yarn over the needle the opposite way than you normally do an eyelet to make a half yarn over. That way you're using half as much yarn as a normal yarn over would. And then you can do your normal yarn overs that come before a knit stitch. You can make those a little loosely. And so, like depending on what stitch comes next, if you do like a yarn over purl, you end up using more yarn. So if you do like yarn over purl, that uses half as much. Anyway, it just depends on, anyway, I don't know if that makes sense. If you have any questions, I can try and do a video if you want me to. And then on the next row, after you've made all those yarn overs, work the yarn over before a purl stitch as called for. Then the next stitch, work through the back loop to twist it. That snugs up the knitting and prevents the appearance of two pseudo yarn overs next to each other. And so that's a weird thing I came across, was that sometimes when I make a yarn over in lace, it's like a really big yarn over and there's like this extra strand trying to cut through it. And it's like, that's weird. So it's making like 2 holes instead of 1. So it's like, that's a way to prevent that from happening. And anyway, so that's all I have in my notes for how I modified. But I did just keep those couple things in mind, and I think it worked out well. It was a lot of fun to play with, a lot of fun to make. This was the smallest size and also took 11 balls of drop swish. So yeah, this is what's left after that. I think the chunky soufflé used up a bit less yarn. It's hard to say. So this one may have used a bit more, but I love the fit on this. This is just, in my mind, this is the perfect oversized sweater for me. So it's like, okay, hey, actually that's a good idea. This one had a circumference of 39 inches. Maybe that's my perfect oversized circumference. So I can just, for other patterns, look for that number. I feel like other people have recommended that before. Why didn't I remember that? Anyway, but yeah, so I love wearing this one. It's gotten so much use. I finished this one in February. So I made chunky soufflé, took a break from it, made some other stuff. Then I frogged it and made this. Oh, I also experimented after frogging with soaking the yarn in like a hank form and drying it and then turning it into balls again. So this yarn has been frogged. It's been washed and hung to dry and then put into a new ball. And I'll show, I actually took a picture because I was curious about this. It'll show a side by side of the really noodly frog yarn next to the washed. There's some difference. I do think it helped. So at first I wasn't quite sure if it was worth it, but I think it was. Let's see. Yeah, I definitely would like to make another one. I'm not sure how soon I'll get to it, but I would love this in gray. But yeah, I finished this in February, just in time for Valentine's Day, so I got to wear it on our date, and so that was really fun. And yeah, I wear it when I want to feel special and dressed up. And it's like super soft and cozy, and so like I've even like taken a nap in it, so it's like perfect for like going out on a date and vegging at home and sleeping. So like the yarn is good for everything. The next finished object I have was made with yarn I got for Christmas, and I finished it in January. I was very excited about it. And it is the Officesweater by Knitflitter. And I'm pretty sure she's my new favorite designer, so go check her out. She only has one pattern on Ravelry. She has everything else on just her website, so I'll definitely include a link to that. She must be more well known maybe in Scandinavia, but anyway, she's great. So what's cool about this sweater is the shoulder increases. I'm not quite sure what it's called. It's either a saddle shoulder or a compound raglan. I kind of feel like it's a saddle shoulder, but I don't know. Anyway, the yarn I used is Wool Pop. I think it's by Universal Yarns. It's a mix of rayon from bamboo, wool, and nylon. And it's DK. It goes 284 yards for 100 grams, and this is the color Sage. I thought it was cool how it has like the lighter and darker strands in it. This yarn has a lot of pretty colors. They have like a dark purple one called, I think it's like Nightshade, something like that. It's really nice. So anyway, yeah, I just really enjoyed this sort of construction, and it had more complicated short rows. I mean, you can't tell by looking at it, like they're invisible, but the short row section was actually super fun to knit. So you can either do the normal line by line written out instructions, or she has a chart in the back that's like a spreadsheet, and you can do the short rows using the spreadsheet, and it's like a board game. It's really fun. So there's literally a square that says start here, and there's arrows. And so you go, okay, do what's in this square. Do it. Okay, arrow to the next one. Do what's in this square. Here, do what's in this square. And then you keep jumping around and following the board game chart all the way to the end. And when you do it, you're done with the short rows. And so I found that to be a really fun way to do it that made a lot of visual sense. And like I'm definitely a visual learner and prefer that sort of chart thing to written out instructions. So that was really nice. Yeah, if I ever were to write anything with short rows, I would try and figure that method out. Yeah, I made the second size B, because I thought it had the amount of positive ease I wanted. Turns out it's too big. So I forget what size that was, but if I remember, I'll stick it up. But now I know that whatever size it was is too much for this style of sweater. So for like the more intentionally oversized look, 39 inches must be good for me. But this one's not intended to be oversized. It's meant to be a little more like, not fitted as in snug, but as in closer to your body. So now I know, okay, make her size 1 for this sweater, which I will probably make again. I absolutely loved it, and I love how simple and basic it looks, and it feels nice without being complicated. And I did make the sleeves a bit too long by accident, and it grew when I washed it, and so basically I have to wear it with the cuffs folded over. Eventually I plan on like ripping that back and redoing the cuffs to make them shorter, but I just haven't gotten around to it. I did have a question about the increases. So when I got to the pattern, she has like the term and then the explanation for how to do it. And so I was like, okay, cool, that kind of makes sense, but I'm gonna watch a video on YouTube just to double check that I'm understanding this correctly. And when I did, the terms for like the left increase and the right increase, whatever those were, they seemed switched. And so I was like, that's curious. So I sent her an email about it, and she said, oh yeah, that's a common thing here in Scandinavia. A lot of our patterns are kind of like backwards, for like we're referring to different things when we say right and left. And so she said, just however it's explained in the pattern is correct. So it's totally fine to watch those videos. Just know, like, you might have to watch the left video for the right thing and whatever. Anyway, it should make sense. So as long as you stick to whatever's in the pattern, it'll come out fine. But she was just ridiculously nice. And so like part of the reason that I really like her as a pattern designer is just because she seems like a really nice person. And I'm not quite sure why, like I totally didn't tell her anything helpful, but she said she found something helpful in our email exchange, and so she sent me one of her patterns for free. It was the Office Tee, and I was already wanting to make that one this summer, so that was a real treat to get that. So thank you, Nina. That was really nice. And then after that, I had grand plans to make the Metamorphic sweater by Andrea Mowry. So last July, Utah had a yarn crawl event where like 7 or so, maybe more, I don't remember, yarn stores have kind of like a really big thing over a whole week where if you visit each yarn store, you can enter for a prize or something. And I went to a few of them, and there's a video about that on this channel. And one of the yarns I picked up from it is a Fibra Natura cobblestone that I got from Quilts on the Corner or Yarn on the Corner. It's both. And so it's a 200 gram ball, and it's sport weight and 100% merino and 612 yards. And so I thought, okay, that'll be great for the multicolor part of Metamorphic. And then I'll just dye some fingering weight yarn and do kind of like a marl for the DK part, the solid / marled yarn. And so I did that. I dyed the yarn, and the first one is this really nice brown. It's a chocolate brown with mauve undertones. I'm actually super happy with how this came out. It's one of those weird experiences where I love this color, but I have no idea what to do with it. It's like, should this be a sweater? Should these be socks? Should this be some sort of accessory, or should I put it with something? Is this an okay color for a sweater? Like, it's brown. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but I don't know. For some reason I have this pause. I'm like, oh, I love it, but what should it be? As you can see, I haven't knit with it yet. And then the other color I dyed is this one. I'm calling this Mauve Cupcake. So it started out as a very much lighter version of that chocolate brown, and I added green and a little bit of blue speckles. I don't know if you can see that, yeah. And then I was like, oh, it's missing something. It needs a punch. Okay, I know, I'll add some neon pink speckles. And so I did, and I loved it. But the thing is, it also tinted the base of it to be pink as well. So it's kind of like a muted mauve-y pink. And I like it. I think it's pretty. It's not exactly what I was going for, but I like the color. And together, they look like this. And so I tried swatching. I don't have any more of the cobblestone yarn. I literally used up every last scrap. So I'll put in a picture of what that yarn looks like by itself. But I swatched for the Metamorphic kind of like in pattern just to test the colors. And like in theory, I feel like it should have gone well. All the colors were like either neutral or analogous, and they flowed. But when I knitted it, it looked so 80s and very high contrast. And normally high contrast is good, but it was not the vibe I was looking for. And I felt it was like similar to that kind of chunky souffle thing with the ruffle. Like, yeah, I could make it, I could wear it, but I would feel kind of self-conscious wearing this combo. So I decided not to, even though my husband Nathan really liked it, and he's like, you should wear it. It's fun to have that 80s vibe. And I'm like, I'm not confident enough for that. So I tried different swatching combinations with like the brown and the blue cobblestone by itself, or the pink and the brown. And then finally Nathan was like, well, try like the blue and the pink together and leave out the brown. So I did that. And I liked that a lot better. I didn't think I was going to. And even though it's like bright and colorful and there's a lot going on, it meshed, like it was the same tone or value or something, and that worked in my mind. So here's what it looks like. I decided to make a ranunculus with it. Because I could not for the life of me figure out what to do with it, because only doing the pink and the cobblestone together, I couldn't make a metamorphic. Like, it's not the right combo. So I had to figure out something else where I didn't want to buy any more yarn for it. So I was like, okay, what can I do with just this? So 2 skeins of the variegated pink yarn that I dyed and 1 200-gram skein of cobblestone. And so we have a ranunculus. And so here's how the fabric came out. And in looking at various projects that people have made with the cobblestone by itself, there's definitely a lot of pooling because it has some very short color repeats. Like each color is only like that long. And so it's like green, white, blue, what everything is like. It's just super short. It's not like the long color changes that like Spin Cycle or something would have. But with this one, I tried to make it an even speckle, if that makes sense. So the base of this color, I'll try and put in a picture of the skein before I caked it up to see what that looks like, to give you an idea. If you want to try adding a speckled yarn to something but don't want it to pool, I actually found that this one did not pool, which was cool. So this one had a very kind of like a solid tonal base, and then the speckles were as even as possible on that. However, I did notice that one of the skeins that I made for these had more pink speckles than the other one. So I did try and alternate a little bit just in case, and I can't tell any difference in the sweater where I alternated skeins and where I didn't. And so it's like, okay, so maybe alternating skeins for this one wasn't necessary, even though one had a little bit more pink in it. Anyway, yeah, here's how that looks. It's cropped for me, but it still goes over the waistband of my high-rise jeans. And then I have 3/4 length sleeves that kind of go to here. Throughout the day, they kind of inch up to like elbow, which is a little bit annoying, but I might be able to block it out further or put some elastic in the bottom, which would help cinch it down. I think that would be the best fix, because what happens is this flares out and then rides up. So if I put elastic in the bind off, then it wouldn't flare out and it might stay down. That's a good idea. I might try that. But yeah, everything else was to pattern. I believe I used, I think I used the size up for needle. I think I used a 6.5 millimeter and I made the size 1. I moved 8 stitches from the body and put them on the sleeves, or like, so on each side. So like 4 stitches from one side of the body I moved to this sleeve, and these 4 stitches from the body I moved to this sleeve when I split, because I didn't want it to be too oversized in the body. And on my previous ranunculus that I made, that was white and cotton that I made last summer, I found this sleeves to be too big. Now I did some weird jiggery pokery with the math and gauge and size on that, so I think that was more the issue. But anyway, I decided to try that. And then I actually did a fair bit of experimentation with this one. So I really didn't want too much ease in the body, and so at first I did decreases along the side, because I noticed with my other one, and I've noticed this with, maybe it was just that one, but I feel like there was more. Anyway, sometimes when I wear a sweater, it feels more fitted in the front and really poofy in the back, like there's too much fabric in the back. So I was hoping that would kind of like bring it in, make it come in on the back, but that didn't work. It just made it more tight on the front, and it was still looser in the back. So I had to rip back, and then I ended up just knitting it straight down, and that worked fine. And then when I did the sleeves, my idea was like, okay, just straight sleeves, and then it'll be like, I guess I didn't have an idea for it. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wasn't. I made the sleeves twice. The first time I did it, they were just straight, and they came to right here when I tried it on, like right at the join, which was very uncomfortable. It just felt weird, and it was too baggy. Like, it wasn't oversized and baggy like on purpose. It was just like, it just looked like it didn't fit. So I wasn't happy with it, and I wasn't looking forward to wearing it. And I realized, okay, the only thing keeping me from wearing this sweater are the sleeves. And I want to wear this sweater. I like the idea of it. So I decided to redo the sleeves with decreases. And so on every 5th row, I did a decrease of 2 stitches. So it's like here, 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 there, and it ended up making it a little bit longer because I was saving yarn from the decreases. So that was really nice. Yeah, I did Italian cast-ons and bind-offs. I didn't use the method that she called for in the pattern because I'm not quite sure. I find it more fiddly and confusing, and I don't see any difference in the result. Going back to the pooling thing with cobblestone, I did notice with certain stitch counts, I would get pooling, and so in that case, I just changed the stitch count. So if I notice, like, oh, I did this much and I'm seeing pooling, then I'm pretty sure I just decreased a few stitches and then kept going. And I noticed, honestly, I really noticed it more when I was experimenting with the increases and decreases, or just the decreases for getting us to be more fitted. That's when I noticed the pooling was happening. But when I decided to go straight down, there wasn't any pooling. So kind of lucked out there, but there is potential for that with this yarn. And I also finished that one in February. The next thing I made, I don't have to show you because it's been gifted, but I have a picture, and it is the Silta Shawl by Tif Neilan. Sorry, I don't know how to say that. I finished it in March, and it was a gift for Nathan's grandma. I don't have any more grandparents on my side of the family, but Nathan still has 2 grandparents. And anyway, I just appreciate having them, and I wanted to make her something. And her favorite color is purple, and she's pretty fun. Like, this isn't her real name, but everyone calls her Bonzo and has forever. And so if that gives you any sense of her personality. And she recently just dyed her hair purple because why not? And so I realized as I was looking for yarn that I found the perfect color that would match her hair. And it's this one, which is Drops Lima. And this is the color Orchid, I believe. I got this from Wool Warehouse, and it's color 4088. And this is wool and alpaca. It's very soft, and it should be warm. I got 4 balls or 200 grams of each one. Each color, I got this color and the color purple. Just purple. And yeah, so the pattern is from Lene's 52 Weeks of Shawls. Thankfully my library had it, so I could just borrow that, so that was nice. But even though I don't really consider myself a shawl knitter, but that book has so many patterns that are so nice. It's really trying hard to convert me into being a shawl knitter, and it's kind of working. Anyway, knitting that one was such a nice experience. It was a great mix of just having a simple thing in your mind to keep going for a while so you don't have to reference the pattern, but then also changing it up and giving you something else to do after a while so you don't get bored. And it was just like, I would definitely make that pattern again. It was very satisfying. It was lots of fun. Yeah, it was really nice. And the final measurements for it after blocking were 73 by 28.5 inches. So it was pretty big. The next finished object I had, I also finished in March. It took me 2 weeks. And those are the Morning Star mittens from the Knit Like a Latvian Mitten book. You've seen me show that before. Here's these. Ooh, hold it by the thumb so you get to see the whole effect. But yeah. So these are a gift for Nathan's mom. So I knit a pair of these for each of his sisters, and now his mom's getting one. And this was fun because she got to pick the pattern and she picked the colors of the yarn. So it was just nice to do that together. These were knit with the same yarn, the same needles, Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight, and what's the other one? Shetland Supreme jumper weight. The white one was the Supreme, and the color white or 2001. And I used one 50-gram ball of the white, and I used two 25-gram balls of this green color. And let's see, this is color 82 mix. I almost always use more of the contrast color than the pattern says. I think for all of them they just say use 25 grams, but I got like halfway through the second mitten and ran out of green. So I think that's because I catch my floats, and I also noticed my gauge was off for the second mitten. So it's like it was too big. And so it was like, that's probably why, but anyway. Now I default always get extra yarn, so I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, there's the floats. I always catch them because that way the floats don't snag on your fingers or your rings or anything. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to make. I did one mitten on vacation, so we had a week vacation over spring break, and so I made a whole mitten in that time, which is pretty fun. The white yarn I got from Wool Warehouse in the same order as that Drops Lima, but they didn't have the green in stock, so I looked somewhere else for it, and Fancy Tiger Crafts in Denver had it, and they had like really inexpensive shipping, so I went ahead and got that from them. And while I was there, I noticed that they had like I was looking for a tapestry needle case that would make it easier to find in my notions bag, so it like wouldn't be just some stray needle getting lost in the bottom that's hard to find. And so I was like, okay, what's a little something that'll make it more substantial, easier to find without being obnoxious or anything. And I saw that they had these little wooden ones that are like that big. They're by a brand called Lasis, I think. There's two sizes. There's a short one and a long one. I got the short one. I think it's like 2¼ inches or something. And I was really surprised by the price. It was only $2.50 for a nice wooden case. And so I'm thinking like, okay, it's only $2.50. That means it's probably like, unpolished wood, whatever might feel a little bit rough. That's okay. I'm fine with it. Let's just give it a try. I was so impressed when it came in the mail. It is polished. It seems very high quality. Like, I couldn't believe that it was only $2.50. And granted, it's little, but it has like that made it look harder to open than it is. This is just an awkward angle. But let's see. Yeah, it's nice and smooth. There's the cap. And it'll hold a few. I just keep one in there right now. This is my nice one. And yep, so this is just your usual size tapestry needle. There's the case. And yeah, and it has a very satisfying click when you close it. Anyway, just a little fun thing to throw in there. I enjoy it. My last finished object to show you is the Fossveien Sweater by Inga Semmingsen. So this one I'm really proud of because it's like, it has color work and cables. And so I've done color work for mittens and accessories, that kind of thing. And I've done cables in the past. I think it's kind of been a while since I've done cables, or at least it feels like it. Anyway, I really wanted to try both in one sweater, and I actually really like the look of both in one sweater. Like, I saw on Anthropology that they had one, and it was like a colorwork yoke and cables in between, various stuff going on. And it's like, oh, I want to make something like that. I really like that look. It's a really fun mix. And this isn't a copy of that in any way, but it does do colorwork and cables. And like, oh, I want to give that a try. And this one, it uses special yarn because, and you've seen this before. Originally, I got this yarn at the Trailing of the Sheep Festival the first time I went, so I think that was 2001, I'm guessing. And I got it originally to be the braid shawl, and I did start that, so I'll put a picture, because I took a picture before I frogged it. But let's see, the white yarn is 100% Corriedale. It's sport weight, and it's from Nottawonk Springs, and they're based out of Cornish, Utah. And so there's their info. And so each skein is only 85 grams, or 3 ounces. So I only had 3 skeins of the white. And the brown is DK weight, and it's also from Nottawonk Springs, and this is CVM. This is where I first fell in love with CVM fiber. It's easily my favorite fiber now. I'm very excited about it. Yeah, it is so soft. I used all 3 skeins, every last scrap of the white, and let's see, did I write down yardage? I think so. Yes, I had 900 yards for the white, and I used 86 yards of this DK. This is such a pretty brown. This is probably my favorite brown yarn that I've seen. It's like a cool heathered brown. Love it. Super soft. It's soft like merino, but has more texture. I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels like, oh, there's something happening here. Like how velvet is soft, but it has texture. I don't know. And then the pink yarn I used is yarn I got on the Utah Yarn Crawl again last summer. And I got this one at Harmony in Provo. This is color T82, or Ome, I think is also what it's called. It's Silk Garden Sock Solo. It is so pretty. I am in love with this. I love how it knits up, and it's very soft. It'd be really fun to have a sweater in just that, I think. Or that plus like a mohair or Surrey or something like that would be really cool. That's on my to make list. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how the colorwork part came out. Like, I love these pink color changes where they have blips of blue and orange and all sorts of things going on. I thought that was super fun, and it was a lot of fun to make. Ooh, and I did do a couple modifications. So it does have short rows in the pattern, but they put them underneath the color work, and I've never done that before. The short rows that I've always done have been like right by the neck, whether in the collar or just after the collar. And so when I was looking at project pages, the collar still seemed to be coming up, and honestly I think mine still does too, so I'm not quite sure what's up with that. Maybe I made the smallest size in the pattern because that's what I had yardage for, but I think, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out what size to make, because I really like the amount of ease here. But then I think lower down, maybe I could use some more ease. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. But anyway, I decided to put short rows in the collar again, just like I did with the chunky Dahlia. And so I don't know if you can see that. The back is higher. And then in the pattern, and you can see this in the project photos, and I'll put one here so you can see as a reference to what I'm talking about. But this is the back. And this, like this section right here, is where the short rows are. And in the pattern, this piece, and it looks like a wedge, it's all in stockinette. And when I was looking at it, it's like, yeah, I understand why, because I mean, it would be complicated to write, and it would take up a lot of space to write if you were to try to do the short rows in pattern. I do think it's doable. I think it would be, but it would take a lot of space in the paper, and it's also harder, like more complex to knit. You have to pay more attention to what you're doing. Whereas if you're doing just, stockinette short rows, it's easy breezy. And the short rows are done before you split for sleeves. So you're doing short rows like into here as well. And so what I decided, I chose to do something different because I thought it looked weird to have color work, stockinette wedge, and then texture. I wanted there to be so the front, it goes color work, texture. I wanted it to be the same on the back, even though there's more fabric. And so at first I tried to figure out, okay, I know you could figure out ahead of time what you're supposed to do where. So I made an Excel chart spreadsheet thing to try and figure out, okay, where do I do the cable? Where do I do the knits or the purls for the texture part? And I was just like, I wasn't as familiar enough with the pattern enough to be able to figure that out. And so I was like, okay, forget it. I'm going to try something else. And so what I decided to do was knit the short rows exactly like they were in the pattern, stockinette. And then my idea was to ladder down each column and fix it to be in pattern. And that way, instead of, because I felt like I had two options. I could either do the brain heavy, complicated to figure out work and then just knit once, and that would do it. Or I could do the more mindless part and then have the tedium of fixing. And so I went the mindless, tedious route, because then, who cares if it takes longer if you're watching a movie or you're listening to a podcast or something? That's still relaxing. You just go into a different mode and say, all right, I'm not knitting normally. I'm working on my project, doing something else with it. And that worked. That worked really well. And it did take me, I think it took me 3 days to do the fixing part of just my usual snippets of time that I have to knit. So it took 3 days worth of that. Oh dear, my battery is low. I need to go quickly. But anyway, so that's what I did. And so I think, it's top down. So I was here, I would ladder down and do okay, 2 knits, 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 purls. And then when I laddered down to do the cables, I laddered down 6 stitches at a time because it's a 3x3 cable. And then I got to where it had the twist, twisted it, and then laddered back up in stockinette. And then I did that for there, and I just kept the sleeves stockinette because the sleeves are stockinette, so I didn't change any of the textures for that part. So that's something I was very proud of to have figured out and to do, and I'm really happy with the result. And then, like I said about the torso thing, I added a repeat here to make that longer, and then it was still cropped when I finished the ribbing according to pattern. So I decided I'll just use up all the rest of my white yarn and continue the ribbing a bit longer. So now I think it works. I will say, I think the white yarn is a bit thinner than what I would recommend for this pattern. I think it's a little bit more see-through, but it's fine. If I need to wear like a cami or something under it, that's totally fine. Okay, my phone died, so I had to charge it for a few minutes, so hopefully there's enough battery in there to get the rest of this video in. Okay, so that's all of my finished objects. I do have one work in progress. My current whip is the Cumulus Tee by Petite, and I'm keeping it in this little bag. I just got this from Target, so it's like beige with white dots. I think it's really cute, and there's this, it has this like internal thing with the drawstring so you can kind of close up the top, and it's in their like dollar section, so it was only $5 for this bag. So, and I got it recently, so you might be able to find it. They had this one and I think a leaf print pattern, so if you're into that. Yeah, so here is my work in progress so far. This yarn is special because Nathan got it for me for Christmas. We actually had a really fun Christmas. He really he's been really into like RC cars lately, and like more like rock crawler, like fancy kinds. And so there was this new model coming out, and so I was like trying to like track it and make sure I could get one because they were hard to come by, and I managed to track one down and get some like accessories and stuff for it. So like that was really fun, but it took like some effort to find. And then he had the same thing happen with yarn I was interested in, so I gave him like a list of different kinds of yarn I was curious to try that I'd not tried before, and he ordered this yarn from the UK, and there was such a kerfuffle about like, oh, we forgot to ship that order, so sorry, oh, this thing's out of stock, or like all this sort of thing was happening. So I didn't get this till we got back from our Christmas trip. Anyway, I'm really happy to knit with it, and I love it. It is, oh, that ball band came off. I'll show you an undone yarn. Okay, it's Sandnes Garn Tin Lene, and this is the color 6531, and it's very thin. Like, I knew it was going to be like thin, like light fingering weight, but wow, it really is. And it's very like kind of flat and squishy, and the ball easy to compress, I guess. But I think that's just because wool has a lot of bounce back and plant fibers don't. So this one is, what does it even say? Yeah, 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. Produced in Norway. So that's cool. And the recommended needle size is 3mm, and that's what I'm using. That's also what the Cumulus Tee recommends. And yeah, so I did swatch. Granted, they were like little swatches, but I found that my stitch count didn't change between the different size needles I was using, but when you would stretch it, the stretch changed and the holes changed when you stretched it. And so I thought the fabric was nicer with the 3mm needles recommended, as opposed to the larger ones, just because I thought the denser fabric looked nicer. Anyway, it was kind of weird, like a weird swatch conundrum. I think there was a difference between my gauge swatch and my actual project, because according to the measurements, I should knit the extra small, or the size 1, or whatever they call it. But once, like, I did this and I got like an inch after splitting for sleeves and body, and I did an inch of the body. And so I did another like try on, and before I even split, like I held it up over my head and was like, oh yeah, that should be fine. But like once I did the other try on, it was like oh, something's wrong. This feels extremely uncomfortable. This is not right. What's going on? And I haven't measured my gauge on here, but it's got to be much smaller than it's supposed to. And I think it was, in my swatch, I think it was a stitch off of what it should have been, but I think this must be like a few stitches off, or several, from what it should be, because let's see, I'm now, so anyway, when I did that try on, I was like, oh no, it took me a week to get this far, because like they're small stitches and they take a while. And so I was telling Nathan about it, and he said, well, why don't you rip back to where you separated for sleeves and just add more increases? And I'm like, well, look at you. Where are you picking up all this knitting knowledge? Like, yeah, that's exactly what I should do. And so I ended up actually ripping back to where the V finishes, and because when I tried it on, I noticed like, it wouldn't hurt to make the V a little bit deeper, get some more room in there. It still won't be too low. And so I'll just rip back to there and make that the way I want it. So I added some more fabric here, made that a little bit lower, and I added more rows and increases here, and then I split for sleeves again. Bit of a saga, but I decided to keep working on the sleeve, and I realized, like, see, this is where you should read like a whole paragraph at a time. Like I didn't. I just assumed the sleeves were just like, you get your stitch count and you just go for until you have to bind off. But there's actually a few decreases in there, and I didn't read enough to realize that. So I'm gonna rip back to here and do that, just because like normally I would just kind of fudge it, but I'm getting some weird laddering anyway, so I figure I'll just fix it. Where is the laddering? Oh, there's some. That doesn't look really good, so I'm gonna see if I can fix that. I am having issues laddering for Magic Loop. We'll see if it gets any better. But now I've finally, like, once I've gotten this far and I had a bit of sleeve, I did another try on and it fits well. I'm now using the stitch counts for the size medium, and it seems to be working fine. I think it'll be okay. And I have yarn and plans to make a second one of these because I really want a brown one. I think that would, like, having a nice neutral tee would be really useful, and I think it would be really nice. I think it's a really pretty pattern. I'm looking forward to having it. Yeah, and I'm going on a trip. I leave tomorrow actually to go to Denver to spend like a week and a half with family. My nephew is graduating high school, and my nephew and his sister, my niece, are both going to be in a play for Fiddler on the Roof. So we're going to get to see that too. And I'm really excited about that. I think that'll be fun. And this will be like the perfect project to take along, because other than those pesky decreases that I forgot about, it's just stockinette knitting in the round. And so it's easy to pay attention to other people when I'm working on that. So as far as future knitting or dream knitting, I have a special project in mind. So I was showing various projects and sweaters and stuff to my mother-in-law when she last came to visit, and she really liked the color work on the Fossveien. And she said, oh, back in the day when she and her sister knit, they made each other like Icelandic colorwork cardigans, and she loved hers. It was like all browns and neutrals and things like that. And she wore it till it fell apart. Like, it was an awesome cardigan. And so I was like, oh, I should make one for you. Like, that would be a really cool project and a neat gift. So this is one of those gift knits that I've taken on. And so I'm thinking for like either Christmas or her birthday in January, I'll give it to her then. So it's pretty far ways out. So my idea is like, okay, I'll start it soonish, and then I'll just pick it up and work on it for a bit and work on other things, and depending on how it goes. And if I fall in love with it and want to keep working on it, great. If not, I'll just work on it bits at a time. And so I was scouring so many like Ravelry and other website like colorwork cardigan patterns, and I found this one that I totally fell in love with, but it's only in Norwegian, which is fine. I have Google Translate, it's fine. But you can't buy the pattern by itself, so it's in a book. I can't find any store that will mail to the US. So it's like produced and sold in Norway, and you can't buy it outside of Norway. And so it's like, that's a hard to get pattern. And so I'll put the info here for this book. Like, I'm still very interested in this book. And so if any of you have any idea how to get a hold of this book, please let me know. I would be interested in buying it. But anyway, I did find an alternate through Sandnesgarn. And so I was looking on their website just to see what they had, and then I started looking for distributors of their catalogs to see if I could find one that I could get a hold of. And so, yeah, turns out Wool & Company here in the US sells their catalogs. At least, I don't think they have all of them, but they have several at least. And they had the one I was looking for. And so this is the catalog. This just came yesterday, so I'm pretty excited. So this is their version. They call it the DNT, so I assume like that's what it stands for. What do they call it? What's it English? The Norwegian Trekking Association version. Let's see. There's several patterns in here. I think they have an overview page. Yeah, it's showing up. So these are the ones in there. There's also some in here that I don't see listed. Like, I actually like these socks, and I believe this hat, and there's even a kid's hat in here. Like, I was looking through the actual pattern, like they have pictures in the front and back, and then the middle pages are the pattern info. And I was flipping through the pattern info, and I'm like, what's that pattern for? I didn't see a picture of it. So I think there's like bonus stuff in there, which is kind of cool. They seem like super basic type stuff. And then, right. So the cardigan I'm going to make, back to that, is this one. I love it. I want to make one for myself. I think it's really cool because it feels traditional Norwegian but still modern, and like this is a really cool style for the West. Like if you're in like Utah, Idaho, Montana, like Colorado, that sort of thing, like this is right up what's in style, I feel like. Just like that cool outdoorsy kind of thing. But anyway, so since she mentioned that hers was all neutrals, I thought, okay, well, I'll make mine mostly neutrals, but with just little pops of color. So I got this yarn. Oh, also, normally, like when you buy a Sandnesgarn booklet, you have to buy a project's worth of yarn from their Sandnesgarn, whatever it is. But at Wool & Company, you don't have to. You can just buy the booklet on its own and get whatever yarn you want. So that's what I did because it saved a whole lot. And I decided to go with Cascade 220 non-superwash sport. So they have a superwash version and a non-superwash version. I forget what thickness Inga from Knitting Traditions got, but this is like whether she got like DK, worsted, sport, I'm not sure. But I know she got the Cascade 220 non-superwash something. But when I was ordering yarn, I was like looking at the pricing and everything. It's like I needed like 15 skeins for this one because I'm making the biggest size, either the biggest or second biggest. It honestly doesn't have that extensive of a size range, so the biggest size isn't that big. But anyway, since I needed 15 of these, I wanted a more cost-effective yarn, and Wool & Company has this for like $5.50 per 50 gram skein. I'm like, oh, that's a good deal. When I opened the package yesterday, I was just like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe how soft this is. Like, it's not merino, but it's not itchy at all. It is so nice. I'm like, I would very happily wear this next to skin. Like, and I love the price point. And it's like, oh, I want a whole sweater in this. I want all the color work, everything, even non-color work. Just, this is great yarn. I think it is Peruvian Highland wool. Yep, 100% Peruvian Highland wool. I am falling more and more in love with Peruvian Highland wool. I've gotten it from different brands before and I've always been happy with it. Yeah, so let's look at the colors. So I'm thinking for the main color, which was green in the photo, I'll do brown. And this is color 9675. And the alternate color is white, and the number is 8505. And the reason I went with white instead of off-white was because when my mother-in-law was picking out colors for this, like I was showing her the different kinds of neutral bases that were out there. Like you could do like a heather beige, or you could do like a off-white natural kind of color, and she seemed to really prefer like the bright white, so I went for that again. And there's one accent color that you use more of, so I decided to go with this like pine green color. I forget what it's called and what on the website, but the color is 9674. I really like that. And I decided to use some yellow, and this is 1060. And I would say that this yellow leans green, like it's not green, it's not chartreuse, it is yellow, but it leans more green than red. So I would say that it's more of a cooler yellow. And for the last one is this orange, which is 1020. And so here are all the colors together. I am so thrilled with this palette. I think it will be super fun and outdoorsy and like natural and warm. And man, I'm really excited about this project. I want to cast it on soon, but I'll be seeing my mother-in-law on this trip I'm going to Colorado for. And so I was like, oh, I want this to be a surprise, so I can't work on it then. Oh well, I'll have to cast on sometime later. But yeah, I'm very excited to work on it. I love the yarn, and there was also a bit of a conundrum about what method or construction the cardigan was made in. I wasn't sure if it was knit flat colorwork or steeked. And because if you go on Santa Skarn's website or Mother Knitter, which is their distributor here in the States, and also like Ravelry and anything that I could find online, like I could not find that information. And so I finally called Wool & Company and said, hey, can you look in this booklet and see like how it's constructed? Because at the time I wasn't sure, like I don't want to knit a whole colorwork cardigan flat, like purling with 2 strands of yarn colorwork is like, I'm not sure if I'm up for that. I haven't done that before. I've also never steeked before, but I feel more interested in figuring out steeking than doing something like I know I could do, but it sounds painful, which is colorwork flat. So anyway, I decided like, okay, if it is flat, I'll convert it somehow to being steeked. So anyway, when I was reading through the actual pattern, and oh, right, I called Wool & Company, and the lady who worked there looked it up, looked at the pattern, and she said, okay, it's knit flat. So I'm like, okay, I'll figure out through YouTube videos like how to do this. That's fine, I can steek. And then when it arrived, I looked into it and it's like, oh, it is knit in the round. So the ribbing at the bottom, it's knit bottom up. You do the ribbing flat, which is whatever, because it's ribbing is the same on both sides. And then you add some stitches for the center column where the button band is going to be, and those are your cutting stitches. And then you knit the whole body to like above the sleeves, I think that part is all in the round. And then the last little bit where you do some shaping for the collar, and like short rows, that part is flat. That part is colorwork flat. I think that's how it goes. It's general gist. There is a little bit of working flat, but it's not very much. So I was very happy to find that out. So it's like, oh, I don't have to convert this. I don't have to like mishmash patterns to try and figure out steeking for the first time. I can actually follow the pattern and do the steeking when it says to do it. So I was very pleased about that. But before it got here and I realized this, I was looking on YouTube for tutorials, and Arne and Carlos have a whole video series of how to do Norwegian colorwork steeking, or how to do steeking the Norwegian way. And turns out that is the exact same method that Sandnes uses. So now I have video tutorials. So literally when the pattern just says steek, I can have a video tutorial to show me how to do it. There's a little bit more in there. It says like add zigzag stitches for reinforcing and whatever. So, but it's nice to have a visual. But yeah, I am really enjoying this pattern. Wool & Company, last I looked, does have more of these if you're interested in that. This has the Cascade 220 non-superwash sport, has the exact same like yardage as the recommended yarn, which is I think Sandnes Garn mini alpaca. So I think this is the exact same specs. And then I also, like in my perusing of all the Norwegian colorwork designs, I came across this book. Also at Wool & Company. I think they might be out of this one now. I'm not sure. But you can get this other places too. I saw this and I love these. I just think it would be ridiculously cute to have matching colorwork sweaters with my kids. Call me cheesy, but I think it's awesome. That might happen. But the one that I got yarn to make is this one. So I was thinking, okay, so if I have to figure out steeking, which I've never done before, do I want to practice on something small? And so my kids are small. I can make the smallest size cardigan, use minimal yarn, have minimal investment, and just practice. And so I thought I would do that with this yarn. So this is the exact same base, the same yarn as for the other cardigan. And I just got colors for this cardigan for my daughter. The darker pink is color 1061. The light pink is 1049. And this kind of like heathery mid to light brown is color 8012. Yeah, so I think this will be really nice. My plan is to do the base of it with the brown, do the flowers in the dark pink, and then these stripy bits in the light pink. So just to add some color pop and some interest. Yeah. Oh, and to see the other patterns in here. There's a bunch. Lots of good stuff. I should have my colorwork sweater and cardigan fixed for a while because there's a lot to work with here. Yeah, so that is definitely dream knitting. I'm not sure which one I'll do first actually. I don't know if I need to practice because like the instructions for both cardigans like seem really doable. And it's the same construction except for the kid one with the flowers. I think that's done top down. So that's even easier. So I don't know. Depends on which one I'm more excited about at the time. We'll see what I cast on next. I don't know. I also have lots of summer knits that I want to work on. Like I said, there's another Cumulus I want to make. There's a few other really awesome summer knits. So it's like, okay, I've got this whole big bank of patterns that I want to do. So we'll see. I'll probably like intersperse stuff just to keep things interesting. Yeah, lots of plans. So yeah, I think that's about it for all the yarny stuff. I hope you're doing well. I think I said before, but we had a long, hard winter. We got tons of snow this year, which was fantastic for the mountains and really good for our water supply. But I don't know, this is also the first year that like the winter dreariness really got to me, and I got into this weird funk of bleh, like just not feeling happy. Like not depressed, but just, or maybe a little bit. I don't know. It was not a great season, but the last couple of weeks have been nice and warm. We've been outside, and I feel like my soul has been thawing as well. I'm feeling happier. It's nice to be in the sun. I've been doing some stuff in the garden. Normally I try and like prune stuff in like January to cut back the rose bushes, or at least sometime in the winter, but they were literally under snow, so I could not do that. So it wasn't until maybe a couple weeks ago that I was able to finally cut back the rose bushes, which is pretty late, but I think they're happy for it. They have lots of nice new leaves now. We have this gigantic lavender bush that I still need to like clip off all the dead stalks from last year. I'll get to that whenever I get back from my trip. It's fine. It still looks pretty flattened from the snow. It's kind of sad. I could use some love. Yeah, I think that's it for the garden. I'm not a big gardener. I usually pick things that require attention like once or twice a year, and then like that's pretty much all I can do for it. So like roses and berries are kind of where I'm at. So yeah, it's been really nice getting to podcast again. I've been missing this so much. Oh, I don't like if any of you have ever done a podcast before, maybe you can relate, but like I feel like there's this sort of like inward momentum you have to have before you can do it. And I had that momentum like going through December. Like I had such grand plans for Vlogmas. Like I had this whole idea kind of like ready to go, and I even started filming, but then like life happened and we had like 3 or 4 months of almost nonstop illness in our house, and it's like, that's not good. And then we also potty trained Ethan and Veronica at the same time. Probably not the best idea, but so that threw a whole big wrench into things. And so I was like, okay, I'm not really here yet. So like I had the momentum and really wanted to do it for a while, and then like the momentum was fighting against life, and then finally life won and my momentum went away. And like now the weather and life is getting better. And so like I'm feeling like, okay, I can do this again. I have the emotional, mental, and actual space to do this. But yeah, so I'm really happy to be back. I've been wanting to be back for a while. I never actually mentioned why we're in a new space. So this is literally like the same room that I usually podcast in. I'm just normally sitting over there in front of the fireplace. But this time, like for the last few months, Nathan's been building this built-in shelf cabinet thing. And I'm really proud of him for doing this. Like he doesn't like house projects, like renovation type stuff, but he does them anyway. So it's like, thank you. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. And at one point, we were talking about like, oh yay, we're getting more storage. And then he asked me like, what are we gonna put on there and put it on the shelves? And I said, well, like, you know, kitchen stuff, books, like all these things. And he's like, yeah, and your yarn needs space too. And I'm just like, yes, it does. I was so just kind of blown away and happy that he said that, because like my yarn stash does need more help. Like I need shelves or something to put it on. But this is our dining room. Like the camera is sitting on our dining table. This is in our dining room. Living room's right there. Kitchen's right there. it's a very public space. So I'm like, I'm not sure how, like, is it weird to have your yarn in the dining room? To me, that seems weird, but it also seems kind of nice. So this area, I think, will be like my yarn area. I won't put all of it up because that would look not pretty, but I'll do like a nice arrangement of some sort, and I'll make it inspirational and useful. So that's the goal. These are definitely unfinished, but well, anyway, they're definitely unfinished, as you can see, but Nathan's still working on it, and these will eventually all be white with like gold hardware and stuff, which is totally my jam. But yeah, I'm very excited for these to be done. I think it's gonna look really cool and like really us. I was looking at it the other day, and it's like, oh, when these have like books and stuff on them, like this whole space is just gonna feel so much more us, because we love to read, we love books, we love all this sort of thing, and it's like, yeah, make our house feel like a library. That's where we're at. So I'm excited for this to happen. It'll be really useful. We'll keep lots of like kitchen gadgets and whatever in there, and board games and stuff like that. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. So yeah, happy to be back. I'm so glad to see you again. This probably won't be uploaded till after I get back from my trip, so a bit of a time disconnect there, but what are you gonna do? I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, rest of your week. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for joining me as I come back after this long break. And we'll see when the next one is. Hopefully this momentum can keep going. My ideal is podcasting every 2 weeks, but like I said, I have no idea what life's doing right now. So we'll see. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Close the curtain, brew some herbal tea. Reach out for me, oh, and take my hand and lead, even when I disagree. Rest sweet me. Close the curtain, brew some herbal tea. Reach out for me and take my hand and lead, even when